Yes, hello and welcome to Release the Kreative, your favorite show about cognition, creativity, and today, the creative mind of Ronnell Richards.
Which is this guy right here.
What kind of intro is that? Wow. I'm like,
we're just right into it.
The creative mind of Ronnell Richards. I didn't know I had a creative. Thank you.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I've been watching your content for a while. You've got, everyone else tries to overproduce their podcast. Hi, Mom. And yours was like, screw it. We're going to do this in a bar.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
How did that happen? Like, business and bourbon, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have this podcast sitting at a table at a Chili's. It wasn't a Chili's, but you get my point.
First of all, you would never catch me at a Chili's. I'm just kidding.
And this week's sponsor. Like,
I'm an ATLian, man. We have great restaurants in Atlanta. And so and I like to support those, especially now,
right.
Pandemic time. Those great restaurants that have those great experiences, those guys are hurting. They're like, 40% capacity.
Oh, yeah.
And so they need us. So that's my little soapbox.
Sure.
My little PSA, get out and support those guys. Okay, so how did it start? Oh my God. Like most great things, it started through a little trauma and a little bit of pain and grew into something fun and beautiful. So Business and Bourbon started from something we just did for fun in my office, like, was it 5 years ago, right? And I'll give you guys the shortened and condensed version.
Sure.
Basically, I had one of my employees, and we were talking at water cooler talk, and she's like, "Hey, my friends are so jealous," because she was sharing with her friends what we do in my office, which I've always been a guy that really invests in his employees, right? And so beyond, I want people to be better mothers, better fathers, more financially sound, all these sorts of things. So I have fun with that. We'd bring in yoga. We'd bring in people to teach financial literacy, stuff like that.
Nice. And
she's like, you know what? That cool stuff that you do and the things you talk about with us, you should put that on YouTube. And I'm like, nah, I don't really want to do that.
So many good ideas die right there. You're like, no, I'm good.
Well, at that point in time, I was just so involved in our company, and it was just something else that I didn't want on my plate. But I said, you know what? I'll tell you what I will do. Why don't we sit down in my office and have a couple of drinks? Because I always have a bar in my office. That's how I roll. Have a couple of drinks. We'll throw the camera on and just record it, right? Sure. You can ask me some questions. And the idea behind that was, I've always been someone that really believed in the team and believed in putting a face to companies, right? And like, company names and logos don't mean anything. It's the people behind it. So I'm like, let's sit down. You can ask me questions, we'll record it, and we'll put this in our newsletter for our partners and customers to see. So that's how it started, is just something to, to share who I was as the person that was leading that organization with our customers and partners, and people loved it. It was fun. We put it in the newsletter every month and get some good reviews on that. People would give me a call and say, "Oh, that was awesome," and
nice.
And that was it. And then, like I said, it was born out of trauma. Here's the trauma. So, in 2017, that company I closed, and it was tough.
Yeah,
it was tough. For anyone that's been through having to do that, especially when it's something that you've invested a lot of your life into, that particular company, 14, 15 years. And, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, what's next? What's next? I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've always got multiple things going, but that was part of my heart, right? And so one of the things I decided to do and invest my energy into was creating a platform, which turned out to be Business and Bourbon, where I could share all of this stuff that's in my brain, right?
Sure.
And so that concept of sitting down, having a drink, and just sharing honestly and openly, I said, you know what? I think this is something that people can benefit from. So I called up some friends of mine in the Atlanta at Chili's. The Chili's and local just wasn't Chili's. Shout out to King and Duke and beautiful Buckhead, Atlanta.
Shout out. The Chili's was a joke.
Fort Fry Restaurant Group, and called up some friends there and said, hey, what would you guys think if I showed up there with some cameras, had someone come in there, ask me some questions, and we started putting some stuff online? And they're like, we love it. And it's been a partnership that we've had now for going on 4 years here in a few months. So we started bringing some cameras in there, shooting some great content, and it started with just folks asking me questions and about business, sales, and marketing, and we moved that to multiple different places. So we started at the King and Duke. We ended up in many different distilleries, and we shot maybe 70 or 80 of those episodes of that. And that evolved to the Business and Bourbon podcast, which we started roughly 2.5, 3 years ago, which has been pretty successful for us. And now Business and Bourbon live events, and the whole Business Bourbon platform has always been about sharing wisdom, right? It's all so I bring people into the platform that have experience, that have scars, that have been through it, because that's interesting to me.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where those are the best teachers, right? I don't know about you guys, but if I'm about to get in a boxing ring and I got to go fight with somebody, I want a trainer that looks like Mickey. Because I know Mickey has been into some fights. I don't want the pretty guy. I want the guy that's got the scars.
You better have a 14 broken nose.
That's what I want, right? So
nice.
that's where it kind of started. And it's become something really beautiful. Private whiskey experience that we're doing is now as well, that has kind of evolved from COVID, which has been really successful for us. But it's a big deal for me, and it's a lot of fun right now. So
this is you just did something that every entrepreneur I've ever talked to does, and that's that you skipped the brilliant part for the narrative, which is fine. We're storytellers, and my point is that. So I'm Release the Kreative. I'm all about misaligned memories and doing things differently. And anyone starting a podcast, they're like, well, I found the quietest part of my room, and I hung sheets over the windows to control the sound, and I went out and I spent too much on a microphone, and it was a piece of crap. And then you lost your office, where it started off your office, a space you could control. And you're like, you know what? Let's keep doing this. Where should we go? A restaurant. That's loud, hard to control, and noisy as shit. That sounds like a winner. You just breezed right over. You're like, I reached out to a restaurant. That's like the hardest thing to control ever. Yeah. And podcasts are about sound.
Yes.
Explain.
A lesson number one to podcasters out there. Sound. So I breezed right past it because the Business and Bourbon platform has become so much more than just the podcast, right? There's just so many different things that we're doing with it, and I get so excited about all the different things. So thank you for bringing me back to the podcast.
I'm a media producer. If you'd have called me 2017 and said, hey, I'm going out of my office and I want you to help me produce, you have cameras and you have this, you're the perfect person. I want to do this thing. You're like, I'm thinking we're going to do it at a bar. I'm going to be like, okay, first off, you're high. Did you drink bourbon before this phone call? I would have waved you off that, and I'd have been wrong. And that's my whole platform here, is that the best ideas are the worst ideas. And that truly has been so successful and has led to this family of things. And it all started from doing a podcast in a noisy bar.
So here's the genius in that.
Please.
So, Kirk, as you know, I don't do very many things without putting a lot of thought into it.
Absolutely.
That was not something I did just because I thought, it'd be cool to be in a bar. I did it because I was inspired by these experiences that those of us as entrepreneurs and leaders have over the course of our careers, where, let's say it's been a long day. You've been traveling and you're with some peers, and you show up at a bar or a restaurant at the end of the day, and you guys sit down and you have a steak and you have a cocktail and you have real talk. Right. No one is. You're not trying to prove how smart you are or how rich you are or whatever it is. You're just having real talk, and you're talking about the things that you probably wouldn't have talked about earlier in the day because you're tired and you're just, this is the come down from the day. We're relaxed, and I wanted to bring people into that experience. All right. And so that is why I wanted to record it from the bar. Now, keep in mind, we don't just show up with phones, right? And we're recording off a phone. We do bring mics and all that in there. But that great sound that's in the background, I want people to hear that.
No, absolutely.
So when a dish gets broken back in the kitchen, you hear that. when you hear there may be someone at a couple of tables next to us that gets a little bit loud. You can hear that, but our quality sound, the sound of our
great.
quality, our mic quality is pretty good. So the sound that comes through from myself and my guest is always good, but that ambient noise is just, man, that's where the magic is, man.
So is. No, it's funny. Like when I talk to people about, like, you know, building your story, and the first thing you have to do is build the world. And if you did your exact same thing in a boardroom, it wouldn't be the same. If you was business and bourbon in a boardroom, it wouldn't be the same story.
It wouldn't.
It's because you're right. We've been at a conference all week. We're going to go have a steak and a drink, and we're just going to talk, and that's setting the stage. And that's interesting.
So Kirk, here's the other part of my evil genius.
Okay, hit me.
You know, when I have someone in the bar having a cocktail and they're sitting across the table from me and we're looking eye to eye, I get the real stuff.
Well, you're getting them drunk, so
it's
like,
all real. Like,
no, I gotcha.
So we are. We're creating an environment also where my guests can feel comfortable to be their authentic self and to share and to be a little bit vulnerable. That's really been the key in the success that we've had with the podcast. Vulnerability. I've had guests talk about a lot of serious stuff.
Sure.
But like I like to say, not in the sense of like Dr. Phil serious, because I'm not Dr. Phil. We have a lot of fun with it.
No, absolutely.
But we talk about the things that really matter.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's so as far as content you consume.
Yes.
Like, it can be business content, it can be like, what are your stories? What is the stories you like to hear? What are the stories you know, the message you're putting out there, which, you know, you've just covered, it's awesome. When you turn it around and you are consuming content, what are you sitting down? It can be a podcast, it can be your favorite movie, your favorite music. What are you doing to stoke that next idea?
Yeah. Great question. And, you know, I have a couple of clients that are really into trying to create create content and everything. And one of the things I tell them, I've told them and I've told others that I've coached, is you kind of have to make a decision whether you're going to be a creator or you're going to be a consumer, okay, of content. Because if there are two different things, once you're a creator of content, you have to be really selective with what content you consume, because it can affect your content and what you're and the best content is your real authentic self, putting who you are, not what's influenced by other folks. And if you're a big consumer of some of this content, it can affect the type of content that you produce. And so for me, I'm very selective with what it is that I listen to, what I read.
Interesting.
And I don't watch as much content as you would think that I do for that reason. So you're it's a phrase that'll poison the well. Like, I guess that's one way to put it.
Sure.
That's a real rough way to put it.
I call them like I see
You
them.
guys are doing great content out there. You're not poisoning my well, but
you heard it here, folks. Ronnell thinks so.
I think your content sucks and it's poisoning mine. No, I think that for where I'm at in my journey, I'm 2 decades into my career, and I'm definitely not done growing.
Sure.
But I don't like too many outside influences, because I think it can get a little bit convoluted, get a little bit confusing. So I keep my circle of influence kind of small, and but my ears are wide open. Anything that circle brings to me, I try to consume it. Like, whether it's books, podcasts, although I'm more of a as we talked about off air, I'm more of an audiobook guy.
Which is funny, because when I wrote a book and you started a podcast, I was like, well, why didn't you write a book? You're like, because I prefer podcasts, but you listen to audiobooks and not podcasts.
Well, I listen to podcasts too.
No, I get you.
Yeah. Just for me, I'm a multitasker.
Sure.
You know, we're ADHD
Can't even
guys.
get through
There
without
we
getting
go.
distracted.
And so for me, it's easier to throw podcasts on, throw an audiobook while I'm doing the 10 other things that I'm doing at the same time.
Okay, so it's Friday night. It's been a long week. You want to throw on that movie that you've watched 100 times because it's like the comfort movie. What did you just turn on?
Oh my God. So it's probably going to be a television show.
Okay.
All right. So episodic comedic series.
Okay.
So for me, it could be It could be some Chappelle show. It could
Nice.
be Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Interesting.
It could be Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I'm noticing a theme here.
Yeah, those are my go-tos.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The theme is I like smart comedy.
Yeah, me too.
And yes, I don't mind some slapstick. Like there's some slapstick in those shows,
Yeah.
but it's smart
It's
slapstick.
smart. Yeah. No, I always tell people that I'll be very blunt. It's like, I don't like comedy. Like, how do you not like comedy? I was like, comedy is stupid.
Yeah.
Like I love, like, my favorite comedy show of all time is House. And they're like, that wasn't a comedy. I was like, yes, it was. First off, they cast a famous British comedian to like, Hugh Laurie had done nothing but comedy up till that show. Because it required the comedic timing to be that much of an asshole and pull it off. Like,
Yeah.
but it's witty and it's wry and it's dark. That's my, I don't.
Oh, so I'm a dark guy too.
Yeah. Suits is good too for the same reason. It's witty.
So I haven't seen that.
You should check it out. It's I disproportionately like it.
So here's one of the things that I don't like.
Okay.
I don't like dramas, things that make you want to cry. I do not want to cry. Like life has made me cry enough. I want to either laugh or I want to escape a little bit. So
Okay.
so I love. I think you're a sci-fi guy. Right, kind of what?
I would not call myself a sci-fi
What would
guy.
you call yourself?
I like urban fantasies. So first off, I'm not a fiction guy at all. Like,
Really?
Like you will be hard pressed to about once a year. I force myself to read a fiction book, to just kind of like cleanse the palate. I love narrative nonfiction. Like if I had a choice between reading a CIA declassified dossier written by or an Ian Fleming Bond film, why would I want to read an Ian Fleming? Like, that didn't happen. You can say it's based on a real person all you want. I have read everything by Tony Mendez that was Ben Affleck played him in Argo. But I've read all of his works about his career. I've read everything about I don't like to escape. I like to dig down into just how real the world is for other people. So I read a lot of espionage declassified stuff, like the Cold War. I've experienced the Cold War I grew up in it, and I have gone deep into things that happened that were never published until the 90s. Like I said, I'm dark. I like to see how deep the rabbit hole goes for other people.
Yeah, see, the real world is way too dark, man. So like, that's the cynic in me. So when I want to, for entertainment, I want to get away a little bit because I like to think that I'm one of these guys that sees most things for what they are.
Sure.
And not what I wish they were or think they were, like what they really are. And so because of that, unfortunately, I think the side effect of that is you become a little bit more cynical, right?
Sure.
And so, I want to laugh. I want to watch some crazy superheroes, or I want to be intellectually stimulated. That's what I want.
So, I mean, I love me some superheroes. And yes, you passed my giant wall of comics and stuff. But I will say that I said House and Suits. I like something that is going to challenge me vocabulary wise, like that they're going to use words. They're going to be talking very fast. I talk fast. I use big words. And so there are shows out there that engage me on that level and that they make me look at a situation differently. And so for that, like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the first 3 seasons were good. After that, it got actually too dark for me. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are like, it's just like
that's what makes it so great.
There's not a single person that I would cross the street to pee on if they were on fire.
Yes.
Like, they're terrible people.
Oh, but you know, if you're a fan of the show, here's where you know that it's just a great cast. When when you sit and you think, okay, who could we do without? Or who's better than none of them?
No, they are all. It is the true definition of an ensemble cast. If you pulled any of those characters, the House of Cards would just fall.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories. That is a keeping in my theme of just people who did just genius stuff. And I'm sure to my internet trolls, I'm going to get a detail of this wrong, but this is a highly condensed version of. Are you familiar with how that show started and how it got kept on the air past season 2?
No.
So. Those 3 people, the Charlie, the Mac, they got what's called, Jeff and I know, it's called the PD-170. It's an old $3,000 camera when it was new. It's just a prosumer SD camera back, and they just shot it in their bar. They shot it and they sent it to FX and they're like, we want to do this show. And FX is like, go for it. And so they They just did it. Like, there are people chomping at the bit in LA, trying to break into Hollywood, trying to do this, and those guys were like, we have a bar, we have a camera, let's just do this. And then it didn't have ratings and FX was going to cut it. Danny DeVito, I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sorry, there are details I don't know. Danny DeVito was a fan.
Yeah.
And he called and he heard that it was getting canceled, and he's on the inside track, and he calls him, he's like, you can't cancel this show. Like, look, no one's watching it, doesn't have, he's like, what would that show need to not get canceled? And they're like, he's like, what if I was on it? They're like, oh, he cast himself on it. He called them.
Oh, he's awesome in it too.
He called them up. He saved it in more than one way. He called them up and said, hey, they're going to cancel your show if you don't do something. I volunteer as tribute. I'm sure he doesn't actually say the Katniss Everdeen line, but he saved the show by putting himself on it as an executive producer. And so he not only literally saved the show, he brought that paternal, awful dynamic.
Oh, I love it. The characters evolve so much over the years too.
Again, I've only seen the first 3 seasons.
Great, and he's produced a lot of other great shows.
He has.
Like Reno 911, he was a producer
was
on
he?
as well.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Which is a great series.
Okay, I gotta jump in. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Jeff and I wanted to take a minute just here at the top of the show to say thank you for joining us on our new podcast and YouTube show, Release the Kreative. Whether you're new to our brand of crazy or you followed us over from one of our other social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter, we'd like to thank you for joining us here. Please take this moment to hit the subscribe and the like button and also that funny little notification button so that you can be notified of all our new episodes. We're really trying to get this new show up on the road. Thank you so much for watching.
All right, we're back from our break. What were you guys saying? Just pick it up.
You mentioned something that I don't want to get lost.
Okay.
In their origin story. It's when people see something that they believe is successful. I think that people oftentimes don't see those stories or that part of the story, right? They think people got a break. You reached out to such and such, and they thought you were awesome. And a lot of times, I can speak for myself.
Sure.
Personally, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Like there was no one lining up ready to say, "Hey, Ronnell, why don't you create a show for us?" Oh,
right.
you're charismatic, you're a good-looking guy. Let's go. Let's do this, right?
Right.
Or, "Hey, Ronnell, why don't you create a podcast? Like, it would be awesome. Here's some money."
Right.
It didn't work that way.
Right.
Very few things in my life have worked anywhere near that. I've had to create everything.
Sure.
So whether it's the podcast, whether it's our consulting business, whether it's our telecom technology company, like all of that stuff, just we had to create it. And that's what I want people to take from this. And I hope that maybe someone's watching this or hearing this is that, they're challenged right now because they're looking for an opportunity and waiting for someone to give them an opportunity. And for most of us that are out there doing stuff, no one gave us the opportunity.
Right.
We just took that shit.
And one of the things that I went to film school, then I went to LA, and the tried and true, we make this joke almost every week. Like, there's a reason that every independent film is about a struggling artist trying to make an independent film, because that's all they know. Like, it consumes. You're like, everyone would watch this. Isn't this everyone's story? No, it's not. And it's so funny that everyone tries to get in the front door of the back door. Like, I'm going to do this thing. It's what Steven Spielberg did. I'm going to do this thing. It's what Robert Rodriguez did. I'm going to do this thing. It's what Quentin Tarantino did. You realize that all three of them succeeded at that because it had never been done before. And now everyone's doing it.
There you go.
It's not, Robert Rodriguez made El Mariachi a thing because in a world that everyone had a script, he was the first one to have a movie. Like, it was a terrible movie that he shot for $7,000, but when everyone else had a script, he had a movie. They did it in a way that had never been done. And it's just like, they didn't ask permission. They did it. Robert Rodriguez, in his book, Rebel Without a Crew, talks about how when he told his film teachers what he was going to do, go shoot a movie by himself, no crew, for $7,000, they're like, don't do it. It'll never work. It's going to fail. Mark Randolph, the creator of Netflix, he wrote a book called That'll Never Work because everyone told him, like, don't do it. It's not good. When you try to, they're like, I'm going to sneak in the back door, like all the greats have done. Right. But if you can name the back door, it's no longer the back door.
There you go. You got to create your own door.
Yeah. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's not my content.
Yeah.
Like I said, first 3 seasons were fine.
You got to find an untouched wall and take your foot and kick a hole in it.
It just got. Have you watched the show? This is, I swear, not a tangent. But have you seen the show? Shoot, it
feels like a tangent.
Yeah, I can't remember the name, so it's back on track, I suppose. Do you read fiction?
No.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say author. So I do. Yeah. I have my guilty pleasure fiction writers, but yeah, I love world building in both fiction and in nonfiction. So if I'm going to consume the content, it's going to be someone showing me a world that I didn't, showing and expanding my universe. Whether it's, like I said, I read a lot of deep CIA because they show me a world that I was like, holy crap, I live in this place. Like this is real. Like this, I had no idea this was happening around me.
Yeah.
Or if I'm reading a business book, like, hey, here's this opportunity I seized. I was like, holy crap, I didn't even put that together. And if I'm going to read fiction, same thing. I'm going to read something that maybe science fiction, but I love urban fantasy set in modern day. But Harry Potter would be a really good example of the Harry Dresden Files, something about the world you live in isn't like you think it is, and it twists your expectations.
For whatever reason, I don't read for entertainment.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
read to learn. Like it's all education for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's
No,
not
I
good
force
or bad,
myself to
just
do
is
fiction
what it is.
yeah. There's really, but once a year, it's like, it's been a year, got to pick a fiction book. I have to do it because otherwise I consume too much garbage business books, which it's kind of funny. Like they're not garbage. They're like, but I've got to force myself to break.
Yeah, I think it's really important to, because there's everyone's got an opinion, right? And anyone that's got a few extra dollars can write a book. So
I will like to say, as the person at this table that has written a book, it took so much more than a few extra dollars. Yeah. It brings you to the edge of your sanity, and I'm not sure you ever get that back.
So that is to write a good book.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Jeff was here. He saw what writing a book did to me. It wasn't pretty.
So I guess the point that I want to make in that is that I know some folks out there that are just voracious readers and consumers of books. They just everything and when it comes to business and sales and marketing, all these things, I just think that less is more. Here's what I mean by that is you can just confuse yourself, by hearing all these different opinions from different perspectives and I don't know. I just personally feel like going kind of deeper into less books and applying the things that you're learning from the books as opposed to just because I know some folks just read a ton of business books and I don't know. I just feel like there's so many competing messages in your head.
There really are.
The application gets lost. And at the end of the day, I'm an action guy. I am all about action. So it's cool to know a bunch of stuff, but it's cooler to apply something and have it actually work out for you.
So if I were to, plot out, we have, the business and bourbon podcast. You have the bourbon, the private tastings. You have all these, this family of brands. This, the Ronnell Richards, I am a business, man, which I love, by the way.
Thank you.
What's the core? What's the point? Yeah.
So, everything that I do, here's what drives me in all my businesses and how we execute our business, all about building advocates. And people that know me closely probably get tired of me saying that, but it is what it is. It's all about building advocates, right? I want people to really dig what it is that we do. And they're going to really dig what it is that we do if we provide a high level of service. So it's service and advocacy. That's what it's about. I've learned later these last couple of years of my life that I am far more artistic than I ever thought that I was.
Everyone's more creative than they think they are.
Yeah, because I've always enjoyed business and creating business and having ideas and taking that idea from the napkin to a reality.
Sure.
That's what I do.
It's the fun part.
And so because of that, there isn't one business that's drives me more than the other. That's more, it's the process of creating and then the process of building advocates for that creation. And that's what's fun for me. That's kind of where the passion is for me. And at this stage of my career, also just sharing all of this IP that I've gathered over the last 2 decades of getting my ass kicked.
Oh, you have your different calls to action, your different like logos. One of my favorites that I have the shirt of, and I've worn it a few times, and every time I wear the shirt, someone asks me.
Yeah.
And every time I go, I think it means this, but you'd have to ask. So I'm going to ask so
Yes.
I know. What does no more entrepreneur porn mean?
Yeah. So, here's what kind of motivated me to do that. Part of the, so I've given you guys a short and condensed version.
Sure,
if we
of
were
course.
to really talk about all this stuff, we'd be talking for like 4 hours and everyone would be tuning out. So that came about at the same time as the Business and Bourbon podcast and my whole kind of transition into doing more content online, right? So I had just noticed and just felt like we were just being inundated with so much just BS. Like I'm looking at things online. I'm looking at things on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I'm looking at popular television shows, and I just felt like they were oversimplifying business and romanticizing it in a way that just wasn't realistic. Like the first time I watched Shark Tank, which by the way, I enjoyed an occasion now, I hated it because the very first episode I watched, I'm like, this isn't real. Like, hi, show up. Hey,
you gonna tell me the Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny aren't real too, man? Don't ruin this for me. I
was
love
like,
that show
hi,
so
I've
much.
invented this toothbrush and I've not sold one of them, but I'd like $100,000 for 10% of my company, please. Okay.
Did they get a deal?
Yeah, on the show, but in real life, they know that's a story for another day. So there's so much of this romanticizing of entrepreneurship, and I think that millennials have grown up in a generation where, the side hustle generation, where everyone is really focused on side hustling, starting a business, and I just felt like so much of the content was preparing people to fail because you're not getting any real wisdom. You're not getting anything that's tangible that you can actually apply. So whether it's shows like Shark Tank or it's all the online content or one of my favorite guys, and you guys are gonna bristle a little bit when you hear this, but it is what it is. Gary Vee. Gary Vee is a very smart guy. He's got a great organization. They do very well, but I like to call Gary Vee the Jim Jameson of entrepreneur porn. And here's why. Here's why.
I don't know that I get that analogy, but I'm really excited
I'll explain it to
hear
you. So people, and this will explain to you what entrepreneur porn is. So his team has done a fantastic job of really taking advantage of social media. And so the 60-second clips, the 90-second clips that get people fired up and ready to run through walls and go buy baseball cards and sell baseball cards and stuff, that it's
It's a straight dopamine hit.
There you go.
That's cognitive communication.
So when we
That
talk
is
about
straight dopamine hit.
entrepreneur porn, it's all of this stuff that we consume that gets us geeked up and like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go do it. But it doesn't really, there's no substance behind it. So think about you didn't think we were gonna talk about porn. So think about like real pornography. It's
I'm all about it. Yes.
Real, people understand pornography is not real, right? That's not a real relationship. I'm sorry, guys.
Left and right today.
That's not what relationships really look like, right?
Right.
And so it's the same thing with entrepreneur porn. I think that people were kind of ready for the message that I have because they understand that stuff they're seeing, it's cool. They enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's an entertainment, but it's not really real. Like I'm not going to go out there and go to some yard sales and get $1,000 worth of baseball cards and turn that into $1 million. This is probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
But
not that it couldn't happen, but it's probably not going to happen.
Probably not going to happen.
Right.
So the entrepreneur porn was really just born from my desire to start to share this wisdom and an education with folks that I've earned, and folks like me, like you guys that have been out there. You've got the scars, and you're willing to share, and not just share that basic superficial stuff, but hey, look, here's actionable stuff.
Gotcha.
Here's what you do to really be successful. It's deeper.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's where entrepreneur porn comes from.
So what's really funny is as anyone who's ever worked with me, for me, or adjacent to me, they'll find that, so I have been a storyteller and a consumer of stories my whole life. I just addicted to storytelling. Did you see the 1994 epic, flawless film Waterworld with Kevin Costner?
Who hasn't?
There are people, like, not our age, but there are people. No, it's as you were talking, it's the Dennis Hopper gets, I was like, we're going to go find dry land. And everyone goes and grabs an oar and starts paddling. And he's like, do they know they don't know where they're going? He's like, it'll take them a few hours to figure that out.
That's
like,
a great point.
Like, he gets them all like riled up. He's like, we know, we're going to find it. We're going to go. And they all run and they start oaring. He's like, we don't have the directions yet. And he's like, they'll let them wear themselves out. They'll figure that out. And it's, as you're talking about the Gary Vee, who I love and respect and everything, but you're right. You're like, you're right. I'm going to go start flipping stuff off Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to start there. Like, it's giving people, it's a straight dopamine hit. See what I mean by cognitive communications later. It's a straight dopamine hit of straight activation with absolutely no direction.
So and to be clear, not a knock on Gary Vee.
No, gosh, no.
I think Gary Vee is a tremendous businessman and really brings
his
a lot of
content
value.
is way more about
Yeah, which is smart. That's smart in
brilliant.
itself. Like he was 10 years ahead of everyone else in that. So I'm just really I just call that out for what it is. It's not that he's a bad guy or no, he's not. He's a smart guy.
Brilliant. No, my favorite book of his is the one that no one ever talks about. I discovered Gary Vee through his book, The Thank You Economy. Mm-hmm. And it's all about like how that, it used to be back in the old day, if you didn't like the butcher, you'd say bad things and people wouldn't go to the butcher. And then as the world grew in the .com, all of a sudden customer service went away because like, look, there's 10 million other of you out there. I don't need you. And all of a sudden the Amazon reviews and the social media and the Twitter have made it like, now you need to be really nice to your customer. And I will tell you that I have gotten a speedy insurance claim adjusted. I have a 100% success record of when I couldn't make something go my way in being as nice as I could be in person, tweeting at corporate to the situation. I have gotten, like I said, I had a bad deal in insurance where the head of my insurance agency called me and was like, whoa, what happened? Like, we live in the thank you economy. If people aren't grateful, social media is a new world.
It sure is.
I mean, now it's kind of an old world, but that book was written in 2010. Okay, so in the spirit of no more entrepreneur porn and not just riling people up with like, again, you started all these cool things and you did it by these by telling a story really cool. What's the action? The person listening, the entrepreneur, the person that's aiming to be creative, the person that's aiming to go conquer nations. Let's not just tell them to start rowing and let them figure out they're worn out with no direction. How do you actually start? If people are terrified to go out without a map, and we're saying that if you know where it is, then it's already off limits. How do you start?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak to two different groups of people, right? I think there's that group that they've been in the workforce, been doing their thing, and decade, 2 decades, whatever it is, and they're at this point where they've got that dream, they've got that whatever it is that they haven't tried yet. I'm going to tell you guys, just do it. Just do it. Like there's this quote, and I don't know who originally said it, but I used to have it in my email for like a decade, and it was regret what you do and not what you don't do, right? And just there are very few things that are unrecoverable from. Right? Like very few things in this world that you can't recover from. Give it a shot. You'd rather be that person that did it and like, oh shit, that didn't work. Yeah. And keep it moving. Yeah. Than that one that's looking back in the rearview mirror and like, God, man, what would have happened if I tried that?
I tell people take a step in any direction. If the thing you want gets smaller, cool. You now have your orientation.
Yes.
Like just the only thing that separates you from what you want is distance. Just move.
I agree. I'm all about action. I always have been. So the second group is that younger group. Yeah. That younger group growing up in the entrepreneur porn world, they're like, oh, let's go get it. Let's go. They're the ones that are most likely to just go straight at something. To them, I would give them the exact opposite advice. Take a minute. Take a minute, vet it out, and then roll. Take the action. But
interesting. I like both of those, and they both make sense.
Yeah, I see a lot of the younger guys and girls out there that are a little bit, and I was one of them at one point. You know, but a little bit too easy to jump without, you know, really vetting it out a little bit. And I'm not saying, because the one thing I always push back against is that paralysis by analysis, right? So I don't want you overthinking it, but I want you to think about it a little bit. Vet it out a little bit, run it by people that have wisdom and experience. For the younger folks, like, you are in a golden age of access. So when I started my career, it was hard for me to find a mentor or find someone that had done the things that I wanted to do that would be willing to invest in me. That's a whole lot easier now. Like, you go to LinkedIn. Yeah. There's plenty. We're all there. Hi. We're all there. I don't need any more people to mentor, though. I'm kind of on lock right now, but I'll put you on the waiting list.
No, absolutely. No, it's super true. It's so basically, no matter what your instincts are, fight them. If you're afraid to start, just start. And if you're quick to jump, take a breath. Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, I think that's...
So to wrap up here, I got two things. One, as soon as people stop listening to this, what are they subscribing to? What's the name of your podcast?
Business and Bourbon with Ronnell Richards.
And second question, are you a fan of the start at the beginning and go chronological, or work backwards in podcasts? Do you have a particular...
Is it a story, or can you just pick any episode? Is there any...
Oh, wow.
I do it different ways for different podcasts, honestly.
Wow.
Start with the current and go back, or start at the beginning?
You know what? We've had so many great episodes. I think on that podcast, we have two podcasts. There's also the Day Drinking podcast, but on the Business and Bourbon, which is our flagship podcast, we've got like, I don't know, 40 or so, I think. So 40, maybe. Just really great people that I've vetted. The one thing I will tell you guys is that I don't care about people's status. I don't. I get requests all the time. Such and such has done this, CEO, this and that. And I get their background picture with them walking off a plane. I don't care. What I care is about the journey. I care about your story. I care about your trauma. That's what I care about, because I know people can learn from that. Because at the end of the day, I'm in the business of creating advocates.
Sure.
And I know I can create advocates when we are providing a service to them. So to answer your question, Jeff, they are all awesome and appeal to different people for different ways. But the one thing that you will find in every single episode is people that are being a little bit vulnerable and sharing their authentic selves in a cool, laid-back environment that people like to vibe with. And I think I'm okay as a host.
Just throw a dart.
Awesome. Well, good. Thank you, guys. This is Release the Kreative this week with Ronnell Richards. Like I said, the creative genius of I'm telling you, man.
Take that.
Yeah. Great. So, wherever you're joining us, whether you're watching on YouTube or on your podcast reader of choice, thank you, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for joining us here at Release the Kreative. Kirk here would never say it to your face, but he thinks you should like and subscribe to us on YouTube.
And Jeff is far too shy to admit it, but he thinks you should subscribe to us on your favorite podcast reader.
Yeah? Well, you're the one who's always saying that everyone should give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
Why do you have to make everything so difficult?